Hello everyone. This is the 14th part of the story, Abe the Wizard. Chapter 59, Iron Meteorite. Abel was getting more excited the more he walked around this place. A collection like what the Knight of Martial had, which was about several decades old, could never be compared with a collection that had lasted for a few centuries. As close as Matthew's family collection was to being a museum, Abel did not find any scrolls or anything that contained a secret knight technique, which showed just how scarce and precious the secret knight technique was. To protect themselves from having their status being challenged, the nobles would do everything they could to keep a monopoly on the ways a knight could be trained. Abel couldn't estimate the value of all the valuable treasure in this room, but according to the Knight of Martial, everything here would have been worth more than 100,000 gold coins. When reaching the innermost part of the treasury room, a round black stone with a diameter of 1 meter was placed in the corner. "What is this?" Abel hurried forward. He was familiar with the round black stone in front of him. It was one of Master Bentham's important collections. It was said that it had been obtained during the study of the dwarves. It was a finger-sized iron meteorite, but its size did not stop itself from being regarded as a treasure by Master Bentham. Whenever Master Bentham talked about it, he would always brag about how rare meteors were and how most of it was owned by dwarves. "Abel, what's wrong? Isn't it just a stone?" the Knight of Martial asked strangely as he realized how much Abel cared about it. Abel grinned at the Knight of Martial. "Just a stone. Did you just say that, Uncle Marshall? If Master Bentham was here, he would have broken your head immediately." "Oh, only if he can beat me," the Knight of Martial chuckled. "So, what is it?" "It's an iron meteorite." Abel's answered firmly. He was so strong on the word meteorite that he just couldn't stress enough about it. "What does an iron meteorite do?" the Knight of Martial asked, as he wasn't a true blacksmith that understood the importance of an iron meteorite. Abel explained, "Iron meteorite is what the gods used to forge their legendary weapons. The master dwarves would also use it to make their legendary weapons and equipment." The Knight of Martial was opening his eyes so much that they could fall off right away. "How much is it worth?" he pointed towards the thing. "Well, when's the last time you heard someone selling legendary weapons?" Abel asked. "Oh, so that's what it was." As a master blacksmith himself, there was just no way that Abel would spare the chance to craft his own legendary weapons. In this world, in addition to the artifacts used by God, the highest tier weapons and equipment were the legendary weapons. Like the swords of 100 skills that Abel forged, most powerful weapons were not meant to last forever. After a few decades, they would have lost the sharpness they had when they first came out of the blacksmith's workshop. The weapons and equipment forged by the iron meteorite would not wear out after using it for even centuries. Whilst it could not last for an eternity, it could last for a few millennium. If Abel decided to make a magic weapon with it, it would likely become a legendary weapon in many years. "Take this iron meteorite back to Harry Castle," the Knight of Martial said eagerly as he himself hadn't seen a legendary weapon before. Since there weren't any forging tools here, they'd have to wait until they returned to Harry Castle. The Knight of Martial didn't want to wait for that long. Whilst channeling his white combat chi, he wrapped his arms around the meteorite and lifted it off the ground. "My God, this is almost 1,000 pounds, the Knight of Martial exclaimed with slight anger in his voice. "Take it back, boy. Just put it back to where it's from." Abel stepped forward and lifted the huge iron meteorite from the bottom with one hand. He pinched his hand and said with certainty, "Yeah, it is pretty heavy." "You're right, Uncle. It definitely weighs more than 1,000 pounds. The Knight of Martial looked at Abel silently. He felt very uncomfortable with being humiliated like this. His total strength was about 600 pounds. After releasing his combat chi, he could reach a maximum of 1,200 pounds. If it wasn't for the round shape of this iron meteorite, he would have just had enough strength to be able to carry it around. Only Abel, whose strength was much more powerful than the weight of iron meteorite, could hold this huge iron meteorite with one hand and easily walk around with it on his hand. The Knight of Martial hurried Abel out as he had lost his confidence for far too many times. Let's get out of this place. Abel's footsteps were heavy. When he walked out of the secret room, he felt the ground tremble at every step. Fortunately, the castle was built of megaliths, and it was very firm and sturdy. Ken saw Abel and the Knight of Martial come out of the study room. Although he was a little shocked by the huge stone that Abel was holding, he was polite enough to not be too expressive about it. Ken said to Abel, "Master, would you like to see the guards and servants in the castle next?" "It's okay, you can arrange these things," Abel replied. Right now, all his thoughts were on the rock he had in his hands. He didn't have much time to care about his new castle. The Knight of Martial said with a smile, "Ken, we still have other stuff to do today. I will leave everything about the castle to you, and I will arrange for the treasurer to come and assist you." Ken understood the arrangement well. It was a normal state of noble management for the Lord to rest assured to the treasury and steward to manage everything. Abel found that the carriage could not handle the weight of the iron meteorite. Fortunately, Ken was very experienced in his work. To pull the meteorite away, he has set up an ox cart and used 2 cows to pull it. If the weapon was forged and the weight was not reduced, only a huge flying beast like White Cloud would be able to carry it around. The ox cart was very slow, which meant that Abel and the Knight of Martial's carriage could only follow it at the same pace. While the distance they traveled wasn't very long, it took about half a day for them to go back to Harry Castle. When they had arrived, it was already dark. After hearing about the meteorite, Master Bentham charged at Abel and demanded to have a look at it. Abel wanted to keep the meteorite as a secret, so he led Master Bentham to his new blacksmith workshop. To congratulate Abel for becoming a master blacksmith, the Knight of Martial built a one-man workshop for him with an extra-large vacant storage room. As for the temporary workshop before, it was moved back to its original location after the orc invasion was over. After entering his new workshop, Abel placed the meteorite in the center of the room. Master Bentham was holding the light and carefully touching the surface of the iron meteorite with his hands. He took down the oil lamp from the lamp holder and shone back and forth on the stone. Master Bentham observed for a long time, meanwhile almost flipping the meteorite by its bottom. He finally murmured something after examining it for about 5 minutes. "Yes, this is an iron meteorite. I have never seen such a huge iron meteorite when I was with the dwarf. What kind of weapon do you think this iron meteorite is suitable for?" Abel asked. He had some doubts about what to do with this iron meteorite. The most important thing in his mind was to forge a super heavy sword, which is almost unbeatable when he holds it on his hand. "In my opinion, your level is still improving now. You can't find a second piece of iron meteorite, so you should forge it when your level is high enough." Master Bentham knew very well about Abel's potential. While the boy was still improving at a very rapid pace, it'd be better if he didn't waste the meteorite right now. "I agree with you, Uncle Marshall. For now, let's just leave this meteorite where it's at." Abel thought of his recent surge of his power of the will, and there was rune that he could discover from time to time. When he could master more runes and have a more powerful willpower, by discovering the method of using rune language to forge equipment, and then use this iron meteorite to forge a very powerful rune language would be the best choice. Chapter 60, Drinking the Potions. Abel played with Black Wind for a while at night. After training it using the mount enhancement technique, he gave it a massage using his combat chi. Abel smiled as he thought, "Grow up quickly, be very, very strong, my little puppy. When you grow up, your task will be to carry me and my weapons around." Black Wind suddenly shivered up its back. It widened its eyes, looked at its master in doubt, and wondered what made him have such a big grin on his face. Black Wind's reaction was pretty amusing for Abel. Not only was it kind of dumb in a cute kind of way, but it was also growing a lot lately, which proved that the mount enhancement technique had worked. If the priest of the orcs could see the growth of Black Wind, it will be surprised at the growth speed of Black Wind. This is because Abel's golden combat chi is more powerful than ordinary combat chi, so the effect of the enhancement was more obvious. After settling the Black Wind, Abel asked Black Wind to play on his own, and he was about to start combining the potions. Abel took out 27 blood fusing potion, 270 replenishing potion and 162 essence condensing potions from the boxes. He placed them in front of him and merged them three at once with his Horadric Cube. As the potion was turned from beginner to a greater level, it began to glow with a shade of blue. The resulting product was 9 bottles of the greater blood fusing potion, 90 bottles of the greater replenishing potion and 54 bottles of the greater essence condensing potion. Then, it was from greater potion to the greatest potion. As Abel merged the bottles into fewer yet more concentrated portions, the resulting liquid began to glow with a luxurious ring of gold. It was 3 bottles of the greatest blood fusing potion, 30 bottles of the greatest replenishing potion and 18 bottles of the greatest essence condensing potion. Finally, it went from the greatest potions to the master's potions. What remained was 1 bottle of the master's blood fusing potion, 10 bottles of the master's replenishing potion and 6 bottles of the master's essence condensing potion. All of them had a dark golden glow on the outside. As he was done with the fuse, Abel took the bottles away to a safe location. Abel took out the master's blood fusing potion. Abel closed his eyes, poured the potion into his mouth, the night breathing technique started, and he immediately felt the blood began to boil. As the blood inside of him began to boil, it started vaporizing and shrinking in volume. The golden combat chi in his blood began to gather up. While the quantity of it was not too much at all, it was about 10 times better than what he gathered up under normal conditions. That being said, the progress he was making now was much more efficient than before. After about half an hour, Abel began to kind of weak from the inside out. The blood fusing potion was making him lose in blood. What a shock this was. This was not what the blood fusing potion was known to do. Wouldn't his blood level just stop decreasing if it became too dangerous for him? Abel quickly poured a replenishing potion into his mouth. After the master's blood fusing potion entered his body, it felt like his whole inside was burning like a lit oil barrel. It felt better later on, and he soon got used to this feeling. A new meridian did take form, but there wasn't much combat chi inside of it. It was an empty meridian. If it wasn't for the supplements he's made, it would take years for Abel to fill them in with his chi pressure point. Abel didn't expect a master's blood fusing potion to be this effective. If he didn't make any replenishing potion, he would have been the first knight to be turned into a mummy by a potion. Speaking from history, Abel didn't know if there was anyone who had drank a master's blood fusing potion before. According to Miss Yvette from the Edmonds boutique shop, with the current amount of supplies the market could provide, the best blood fusing potion available to this world would only be in the intermediate level. Frankly, what that meant was that Abel had just turned himself into a guinea pig for a first-time ever experiment. It was a very frightening experience, he thought to himself. From what Abel had noticed, the ratios used to make the blood fusing potion and the replenishing potion were the same. It was always a 1 to 10, but a master's potion had none of the side risks that could be posed to its leaders. Better yet, it was effective after just 1 consumption. After drinking 1 bottle of the master's blood fusing potion, Abel would have to drink 10 bottles of the master's replenishing potion to recharge his body. This kind of training would at least cost him 4,000 gold coins, a sum he could buy a whole potion store with. If Abel kept doing this, he would have got to spend a tremendous amount of money to fuse his master's potion. As for whether the Edmonds boutique shop could have enough supply, or whether making such large purchases would bring any suspicion, these were all very practical issues that Abel would have to think about. After drinking the blood fusing potion and the replenishing potion, Abel took out a master's essence condensing potion and drank it down his throat. Once its content had entered his body, it became this hot stream of energy that went straight into his chi core. If he used his power of the will, he could even feel his chi core contracting at a strength that he wouldn't normally notice. Abel took out another bottle that was crafted by his Horadric Cube. After he did, he felt a soft contraction in his chi core again. For more bottles, Abel felt it with his power of the will. It would have to take at least 100 bottles of such potion to make any qualitative changes. These 6 bottles of the master class potion had cost Abel 1,600 gold coins, one bottle was 2,700 gold coins, and this number was multiplied by 100, so the total summed 270,000 gold coins. Abel felt like robbing a bank right now. Although he had a divine item like his Horadric Cube, there was just too much time and ingredients he would have to expend to use it. Besides, selling the finished product was not an easy task at all. It'd be difficult to explain their source. There would certainly be a lot of trouble for him if people started suspecting him. Abel decided that, in addition to some necessary training and experiments, the rest of his time would be used to forge weapons and sell them for money. The fastest way to make money was by crafting weapons. It was also the most non-controversial way to engage in trade. Drowned in his thoughts, Abel entered into his dreams and saw himself on top of a mountain of treasures. All the treasures were different potions that he had made. He was spending every hour making a master's potion. The only time that he didn't was when he had finished making them and falling asleep right on the spot. Without having a sense of time, Abel's face felt kind of itchy. He opened his eyes and saw Black Wind licking his face with its stretched out tongue. "Ah, damn it," Abel called out. He didn't finish making his potions. Even whilst sleeping, Abel worked hard all night to combine his potions. As a result, he didn't get to drink a single bottle of them. Abel thought for a while, picked up Black Wind, and started scratching on the belly of the Black Wind, while Black Wind twisted his little body as it felt itchy from the top to bottom. After playing with Black Wind for a while, Abel started his night practice every morning. He ate his breakfast and came to the workshop that he's built inside the castle. As there was simply too much of his creation that had to hide away, Abel had become even more cautious than when he first came into this world. He would often use the Horadric Cube in his forge, and while doing so, he would need to use a lot of special techniques, most of which he'd rather not let the others know about. From now on, he decided that he would only make tools inside his workshop. When Abel entered the operation room, he found a gorgeous carriage parked in the operating room. "Lindsay's pretty fast, isn't he?" Abel mumbled to himself. Abel stepped forward for a closer look at this carriage. Its entire structure was made completely out of wood. On the surface were engraved with the pictures of the heroic battle of the first king of the Duchy of Carmel. There were 4 such pictures on each side, each depicting a famous battle that was recorded in the nation's history. Such art style was very common throughout the land. The interior wall of the carriage was lined with soft padding, and the outside was wrapped with animal hides. The seat was soft, too. With these features in place, it could be said that the designer wanted the carriage to have some sort of shock-resistant properties. The wheel of this carriage was made out of wood. The outer ring was surrounded by a layer of a thin iron sheet to protect the interior structure. The middle axle was all forged by forged steel. It wasn't like Abel was unpleased with the design of carriage. If anything, he was very satisfied with it. The most he needed to add was some small modifications. As for decorations, there wasn't a need for it. Compared to those car repairers back on Earth, the way Abel disassembled a vehicle was very simple. First, he loosened the buckle of the wheel. He then lifted the seat off of the wheel axle, and the wheels were unloaded automatically. Lastly, he took the parts apart and laid them neatly on the ground around him. Chapter 61, Super Cow Cart. The first he needed was to fix up the stability of the horse carriage. Abel added 4 groups of bulky springs between the wheels and the body of the carriage as shock absorbers. Abel was sure that the quality of these springs would be unmatchable. This was not only because Abel remembers how to make the spiral springs from his past incarnation, but it was also due to his incomparable strength. When it came to making these springs, one needed to throw the spring iron into the furnace. Then slowly strike it until it became a thick stick of iron. Afterward, one needed to wrap the stick of iron around an iron rod. Since Abel did not have the equipment for this, that's where his enormous strength could shine. Although these spring irons were not as strong as the 100 skills irons, it was still impossible for a normal human to bend. If Abel's body did not develop in such a rapid pace in these past few days, there's no way he could do this. There were 4 springs in a group. Every group was secured by a sheet of metal at the bottom of the carriage between the wheels. It took Abel a large amount of time and effort to secure this total of 16 springs. The shock absorbers had been completed. Then, it was the most crucial step. Before this, Abel had already forged 20 thick rectangle sheets of 100 skills iron. Only Abel would have used 100 skills iron to form an ordinary sheet. Normally, these type of iron was only used in the weapons of the highest value, such as a big sword. In fact, they were treated as treasures by all blacksmiths. Abel drew out a rough area on the sheet and proceeded to throw it in the furnace. After it was burning red, he took it out with a tong. Then he put a hole for the gem on the sheet with a hammer drill. After Abel drilled a hole in all 20 of the sheets, he threw them all into the water for cooling. After he whipped them dry, it was rune drawing time. He had prepared to draw some ice magic runes, which he was way too familiar with. However, this time he would be using the intermediate ice magic rune ink he had combined. The rune path created by these intermediate rune ink was often very fragile, so it was better to still be very careful. On top of that, Abel would be using this on his own carriage, so safety was definitely a priority. However, these rune inks were combined anyway, so it didn't actually cost that much. Since Abel's power of the will had increased, drawing runes were like a walk in the park. He had drawn 5 runes in a row until he felt his power of the will depleting. He rested for 30 minutes before drawing another 5 runes. Just like that, 10 ice magic runes were complete. Abel then took out the intermediate fire magic rune ink and turned the other 10 iron sheets into fire magic iron sheets. In the hole of each of the sheets, Abel separately placed 10 blue gems and 10 red gems. All of these gems were combined by Abel, so the cost was low as well. Afterward, Abel used some normal iron to forge 2 large boxes. He then put some small holes on it with a hammer drill and placed each of them on each side of the carriage. Then, Abel secured some fan arms on to each of the holes inside the cupboard. There were conveyor belts connecting the fan arm to the wheels, allowing it to spin. That's where the 20 sheets of iron could show its power. He secured the 10 ice magic iron sheets on each of the 10 fan arms on one of the large boxes. Outside the cupboard, Abel added a handle. There were 10 different modes to the handle. If one pulled on the handle on the lowest mode, it would only ignite to 1 ice magic iron sheet, thus only unleashing a small amount of ice magic power. As the gears went higher, the more magic sheet it would ignite, thus the ice magic power would increase as well. When the carriage was moving, the conveyor belt would spin these sheets inside the large box according to the motion of the wheels. When the ice magic power was ignited, cool air would blow out from those small holes of the box. This was a special ice magic air conditioner designed by Abel. It used the same technology as those ice magic big sword of his. Since a big sword normally would be sold for 20,000 gold coins in an auction. If each sheet of iron worth the same amount of a big sword, this air conditioner could worth more than 200,000 gold coins. Of course, if you want to calculate the price of this thing, who could forget about the intermediate rune ink? Since the material for these ink was extremely rare, they were almost priceless. Therefore it was very hard to calculate the actual price. With the same method, Abel installed the 10 fire magic sheets into the other large box, thus creating a fire magic heater. This entire air conditioning system could cost well over 400,000 gold coins. Abel wondered if he should mass produce it. A mere air conditioning system like this could pay for the training fees for his entire life. Normally when a horse carriage was made, the gap between the wheels and the body of the carriage was only filled with some lubricants. This method seemed very outdated to Abel. Since he had now installed the springs onto each of the wheels, they could continue moving despite the bumpy roads. It would also go faster since it required much less effort for the bull or horse to pull. Abel also did some upgrades to the wheels of the carriage. He wrapped layers of orc skin on each of its rims. The outermost layer was equipped with the highest quality orc skin. These orc skins were found in the secret collection of the Knight of Martial. Due to their small surface area, they could not be turned into armors. Therefore they were just gathering dust in the storage. Only until now, Abel had taken it out to use it as tires for the carriage. Just like that, the super luxurious horse carriage has completed its upgrade. Abel called in some carpenter from the castle. He told them to secure the 2 large boxes of the air conditioner with wood and turn it into 2 tables. Now, both the front and back of the carriage was equipped with 2 sofas, 2 tables on each side, and under which was an air conditioning system. Abel had sacrificed 3 days of effort to make this horse carriage, or bull carriage, since it would be pulled by inferno bulls. He was sure that the Lord of Martial would be very satisfied to receive this as a birthday gift. Abel then took out the 2 different rune signs he got from the worgen. Although he had never seen these runes before, according to the Knight of Soroya, who was the leader of the Knight Brigade that battled the orcs, a worgen had also taken out a sign like this when it was being attacked. It hugely reduced the impact of the 33 knights' combined combat chi strike. As far as Abel could remember, there weren't many runes in Diablo II that could reduce impact. If Abel's train of thoughts was correct, these 2 rune signs could very well be the 12 #SOL Thor runes. 12 #SOL Thor. +9 the lowest impact. Offset physical impact 7. Abel didn't know what offset physical impact 7 meant in reality. However, he was reminded of the wound that was on a white cloud. Although it was long, it wasn't too deep. Abel speculated the rune sign must have drastically reduced the power of the 33 knights' combined combat chi. Therefore, offset physical impact 7 should be around the force of around 30 official knights. Although Abel was unsure how much power a commander would have, this rune should be more than capable of defending against an elite, or below knight. Abel had an idea. He should make a shield out of this rune. Since it was still too challenging for him to make great defending weapons such as the Ancient Vow with rune language. These single rune weapons should be doable. Although Abel was not used to making shields, he didn't think it would be a problem because of his incredible strength and his increasing power of the will. Abel decided to make a knight's shield, also known as the kite shield. These shields were flat on the top and sharp at the bottom. They were very commonly used by knights. Its surface was often color painted with the knight's family's coat of arms. It was practical and functional. Abel picked out the best iron from the iron ore. He decided to start from scratch. It was the first time he would make a rough iron model since his strength has developed drastically. This time, he struck the iron with a 100-pound hammer. He couldn't help it. The 30-pound hammer he used before felt like a toothpick in his hand. Although this 100-pound hammer still felt a bit light, it was already the heaviest one he could find. He started from 1 skill and forged it into 80 skills with almost no effort at all. He realized he didn't even need to utilize his power of the will to do this. He could just use his brutal force. As he kept striking the iron with this nonsensical method, soon it had turned into 100 skills. By this point, he was no longer satisfied with a 100 skills model of iron. If he had used his power of the will on top of this, who knows how many more skills could he forge. This marks the end of part 14 of the story, Abe the Wizard. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.